Then, of course, like you mentioned, there's the classic pro wrestling heel trick of doing something just completely dastardly and underhanded, and it just gets people's blood boiling. It's like, what the, and like all of a sudden, but any, there are all sort of different tricks for emotionally involving people, and then you care. And once you've got them on board, that is when you want to be putting your exclamation marks. If you've got the ability, that's when you throw your triple tornado kicks in and your flips and your this, that, and the other, right? But you can go out there from the off and you can go and no one cares because they've seen it all a million times before and you've not built properly and you've not established anything, in the same way that, like I say, on the promotional side of things, the way the UFC has definitely borrowed massively from pro wrestling with the on-screen interviews and everything. I love that. I love the UFC, I said, the straight up fight about it. I like the product, I like the presentation, everything about it definitely created that world and that experience really well. So there's that side of things. And now you've actually also worked with some of the absolute legends of professional wrestling. I know you've worked with Dustin Rhodes, who's former WWE, WCW, still going strong now in AEW, still having great matches. Big Van Vader, like the classic big man bad guy from the back in the day. And you even worked with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and wow. So listen, tell me about those guys. Tell me about anybody else that you want to. You work with that many, and like I said, on your Future Shock shows, I've seen our WWE talent pass through there. We talked about Jack Gallagher. I've seen him have a fantastic match with Tony Uha, who is Apollo Crews on Raw now. I saw him and Davey Richards, who was in TNA with Eddie Edwards as the American Wolves. And, you also, thank you very much, gave me a chance to do some training with them at one point in time down at your school when you were still running it. And that was a wicked experience for me. But I mean, Davey Richards and Jack Gallagher just tore Stockport Town Hall down one night. I mean, it's one of the best matches I've ever seen. And I was in good seats at SummerSlam 92 for the Bret Hart and British Bulldog clash. So, like, when I say it was one of the best matches I've ever seen, I'm not saying it lightly. It was superb. So you've had all that spectacular talent come through your door, and you've worked with some of the best guys. So, A, tell me a bit about it. But B, if you could also work with anybody, part B of the question, anybody in pro wrestling, past, present, or future, yeah? And you can have more than one. Who, why? Okay, so start with the first bit. Tell us about some of the legends you've you have worked with or you've had pass through your doors and you've promoted, and some of the more memorable moments. And then part two, who out of anyone of all time would you work an angle with if you got a chance? Go.
Brilliant. So, I mean, in terms of running kind of the Future Shock and kind of running that, the point of it all was always to kind of create a platform for people to kind of ascend. So there was never a big drive for me to kind of put myself in matches with people I was bringing in. It was always kind of like, I brought Davey in. Well, Jack, as much as I was, and unfortunately, I've never actually got to work a match with Davey, despite us both saying numerous times that we'd love to. Because Davey, he came over and worked for us like half a dozen times. He came over for months at a time sometimes. I consider him a friend. And we never actually got to work a match together. There was an angle once where when I was a bad guy, so I switched from my good guy persona, at another promotion called PCW, and I was throwing a tantrum. And I was throwing a tantrum because they'd brought over all this American talent and not given me a match. So I was doing like a sit-in. I came out, cut a promo about how it was complete bullshit, that I was the cruiserweight champion at the time, and I'm like, and I should be getting more of a spotlight and blah, blah, blah. I was going to sit in the ring until someone came out and gave me a match. And Davey Richards came out, basically called me an annoying little shit, kicked me in the face, took me out the ring, and then kind of got on with the show. But and that was about as far as we got. But I remember he kind of complimented me after saying, like, the promo was great, the character was really good, and that he would love to actually be able to do a match with that character. Because, like, whilst my good guy character was all about fair play and having a good time and being that first guy in the club who would dance and stuff.
Yeah.
Kept the gimmick, but I changed my character to be a bad guy. So I was still that kind of clubland music, kind of here to have a good time dude. But I switched from the guy that's always on the dance floor to being that guy you always see who just waits at the bar trying to hook up with drunk girls. Doesn't do anything.
That was me. That was me. Right, yeah. Okay.
He's in the bar. He's not smiling. He's not having a good time. He's not there for anything other than trying to kind of latch on to people. And again, I hate those guys. So if I'm going to be a bad guy, I'm going to be the kind of person I hate. So here I am. And I was a bit of a kind of a shithead. And then over time, real me and fake me kind of merged into this one glorious nerd who would wear superhero-inspired wrestling gear and stuff. But
give me that, man. I like that.
But yeah, so it kind of came naturally, and even then, so we're using that character and particularly in this company, it's called Preston City Wrestling, because I never really wanted to give myself those matches. I actually had a good run for a number of years in Preston, and the guy there, Stephen Fludder, was good for kind of recognised that there was this kind of unique connection between me and the crowd there, particularly because all the events were in a nightclub, so the character fit in the environment. So he gave me people to work with. So he did the thing with David. He booked me with Goldust. Yeah. And again, I came out on a show where there was lots of American names, and I cut a promo about how it was terrible that all these people who were has-beens were going to come over and take all the jobs away from like myself, and I was a star. And then Goldust, who wasn't actually booked on that show, he'd been announced for the next one, came out as a surprise. I think that's on YouTube somewhere. It's wonderful.
It is. I've seen that. I'll
shit. And it's all about like, he comes out and he's like, you standing in the ring acting like this is like your yard, and then being all upset. But there wouldn't be a wrestling if there wasn't for people like me and like Ricky and kind of Vader and all those kind of people, those people that I was shitting on, because I was a young lad who was shitting on the past like heroes. We ended up having like a whole like run of matches, and again it was a lot of fun. I worked with him, and he was like a great guy, and he was fantastic because, particularly with people who've been in the business for years, because obviously wrestling's pre-planned, and you have your things that you like to do, your stories that you like to tell.
Oh yeah.
So it's not unheard of, and to an extent, it's not even really much of an issue that if you get in a match with somebody who's a name, who's a known entity, who's been doing it for years, you kind of say hi, shake hands, and they tell you what they want you to do, because everyone's there to see them, really. You don't go to like Preston to watch Tajiri, who I worked a match with as well, which was fantastic.
Oh, I didn't know you worked with Tajiri. He was one of my favorites. Great.
There's a picture of me knocking around somewhere just covered in green from his mist move, and that was the point. The point was like, again, Tajiri was fantastic, wonderful guy, but it's not unheard of to go to someone like that and be, hi, my name's Dave, we're on the show tonight, what would you like to do? And they'd be like, right, well, ultimately, most people have probably come and paid their 15, 20 quid to see Tajiri. And if you've paid 15, 20 quid to see Tajiri, you want to see the buzzsaw kick. You want to see the mist. You know what I mean? You want to see the tarantula. You want to see him do. So the match is based around getting their stuff in. That's what people want to see. So I came up to Dustin, Goldust. I was like, hi, my name's Dave, blah, blah, blah. And it was a little bit intimidating at first because he's quite a tall guy. And I was like, we're doing a promo today, like I'm going to go out and say this, this, and this, hope that's okay. And he was like, you just do you. This is your crowd. These are your people. You know what they want. You do you, and then we'll drop me in and we'll see what happens. And so that was all the conversation we had. And then I cut my promo, and then the Goldust music hit, and I'm in the ring, like looking away from the industry, being like, oh my God, what's happening? And what I haven't realized is, so when I spoke to him backstage, he's not got changed yet. So he's just this tall guy, blonde hair, quite buff. And then I don't realize is that he's kind of jogged to the ring. He's not done the full entrance because it's not a match, and he's not going to do the full thing. People want to see the full Goldust experience. Come back next month. Come back next month. Pay again. Right. So he's jogged to the ring. So I don't even realize he's behind me. He's in the ring yet. So I turn around ready to see his entrance. What I think is he's already in the ring. He's like a foot away from me, and he's covered in the globe. He's got a full body suit on. He's like at me. I go, oh. And a little wrestling trick sometimes, because you're on a platform, live, you want to look larger than life, is you have what are called lifts, which are like small platforms in your boots to make you taller. So he's already 6 inches taller than me, and he's got his boots on. He's got lifts in his boots. So he's even taller than I remember him being. And I'm just like, and I think there's a point where like we're face to face doing like a stare down. I kind of do this and then go up on my tiptoes to try and meet him, and he just starts laughing. He couldn't help it. And we've got some like promo, and I make a joke about, because his brother was very popular in WWE at the time, and he just changed his look and got Cody's mustache was a thing. It was a chant.
Oh, yeah, it was, wasn't he? I remember that. Yeah.
Don't you come here and take it out on me just because your brother's mustache is more popular than you ever were. And like, because it was like, and that was part of my character, was to be like that one more step into reality that people expect. So I could have been like Dave Rayne talking about gold dust, but I wasn't. I was Dave Rayne talking about his brother. You know, like it was like one step. It was like a ooh kind of moment. And afterwards, he was like, "That was really funny." At first, I was like, "I'm really sorry. I don't know. Like, I just what I do. I just kind of make things a bit personal. Like, it's not, you know." He's like, "No, it was funny. Like, it made me laugh. Like, it was really funny." And then we had a match. But when he came to the match again, the same with like that show stuff, I was fully expecting I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Instead, he was like, "What do you want to do? What's your stuff?" And he was asking me what my moveset was. What my, because a good wrestler has a moveset.
Yeah.
Like a good character. You know, you want to see them, because that's how you can tell a story, because you can build into him. And then the story becomes like, you when you know a wrestler's going for a move, he doesn't have to hit it to get that anticipation. And then when he doesn't, there's that drop, or there's that build, you know, and what's a good one? So
physical storytelling, basically, Dave. You're establishing, like you say, you're establishing your character through your move set and what have you. You get the crowd used to a rhythm, to a pace, and then you can either A, go along with that, which gives them that sense of sort of reassurance, familiarity, and can build, or B, like you said, they can go for that, and they've hit it a million times before. We've seen it on TV every week, and then suddenly something changes, boom, you know, and again, that's a great way of drawing the crowd in, right?
Yeah, because it wakes them up, makes it unexpected. Yeah. But to give someone a surprise, they have to be expecting A, for them not to be expecting B.
Which you have to establish first, yeah.
Yeah. If there's no expectation, it's not special. Like Christmas Day. If you just randomly gave people gifts throughout the year, it's nice, but no one's going to be, oh, but then they get up on Christmas Day because they know they're getting presents that day. But the question is, what present? What's going to be there? And that's the anticipation and the payoff. And it's the same kind of thing with wrestling, you know, like if you're someone who has a trainer, I used to say to the guys, if someone asks you, like, never, ever, ever, if someone asks you, what do you do? Never, ever say whatever, or it's all good, or anything. That doesn't help. It doesn't help. It's like me giving you it's like giving you a piece of paper and a pen and saying, write me a story. Like, the first question I was going to ask you is about what? You know what I mean? Like, give me, and then you'll sit there, and maybe you will write a story, but maybe you'll write a story about aliens in space. When actually what I wanted was a war story. But I didn't tell you that. I just wanted you to figure it out. Like, so you sit down, you say, what do you do? And it's like, right, I do this move, this move, this move, and this move. For my shine, which is the beginning bit, when you want to make the good guy look good, I do this, this, and this. Well, then you do your shine. But then my cutoff will be me doing this. And that's when I do something underhanded to stop your shine. And it's like and it's all part of that storytelling in the ring. So what you want to do in a match, at the start of a match, is you want to give people a reason to care about the good guy. And the best way of doing that is you get them to do something fast-paced or cool or interesting that shows that they're here to win the match in the right way. I'm here to be the best, either by being the fastest, the strongest, the most technically minded, whatever. I'm going to have a wrestling match, or we're going to have a punching fight, or we're going to run around, whatever. I'm better than you at this. And the moment the crowd realise that I'm better than you at this, you're going to pull the rug out from under me. Even though we have a gentleman's agreement that we're going to have a wrestling contest, you're going to admit in front of everyone you're not going to win that way, and you're going to cheat. Ooh. And then it's the cutoff. You have the cutoff. And then you have what's called the heat. And the heat should be this kind of methodical kind of dissecting of the good guy. So the bad guy's like, I'm going to beat you up. But I'm going to beat you up in a way that is going to hold people's attention, but isn't going to be spectacular. I don't want the crowd to be like, ooh, over anything I do. So I'm going to slam you down, bam, I'll drop an elbow on you, bam, give you some kicks. Maybe I'm going to put your head in the corner and hit you a few times, choke you out when the rest's not looking. It's going to be slow, it's going to be methodical, it's going to be nasty. People aren't going to be able to take their eyes off it, but no one's going to be excited to see it. And then, in a few minutes in, I'm going to do something horrible. Like, maybe I pin you, you kick out, and I shove your face. You horrible, arrogant little shit. How dare you kick out? And you're going to go, and just punch me, just once. Just one big punch, bam, it's going to rock me. The whole room's going to go, because showing some life, and I'll shut you down again. Bam. Shut you down, keep beating you up. And every now and again, you show a bit of life, and I push you a little bit further until eventually something goes wrong. So maybe I've been beating you up and putting you down and trying to pin you, and it's not working. I'm not doing anything big enough. I'm like, right, that's it, done. I'm going to do something to you that's going to keep you down. I put you down in the middle of the ring. I climb up to the top. I'll do a leg drop on you. Only I stop at the top to look around the room and to say to this little old lady in the front row who obviously loves you, you watch this, love. You watch this. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. And I'm doing it just for you. And whilst I've been jaw-jacking, you've actually started to wake up. I jump off to do my leg drop. You've had enough time to recover. You roll out the way. I land on my arse. Big bang. I bounce up, holding my arse. Ah! And then you run in, drop me on it again and again and again. And everyone starts going nuts because I've been such an arsehole. Now it's time for my comeuppance.
Yeah.
That's like how you kind of do it. And with like, to bring it back to Goldust, so with him, he was like, what do you do? What is your move? What is your match? These are your crowds. They know your stuff. So let's build it around your stuff. And I was like, this is amazing. Because the amount of times I've wrestled people who've been, to be fair, most of, like with the bigger name guys, they're quite happy to do it, like to let you do your stuff. It's that mid-level kind of guys who are only just at the cusp of real fame or something, and they're like control freaks.
Yeah.
This match has to be amazing. This match has to be great, and it's only going to be great if I have complete control over it. Whereas Goldust has been doing this for 25 years, and he knows that it doesn't matter if this spot or that spot or this particular move is crisp and perfect, because it's the emotion of the moment that's going to tell it. And that emotional moment is going to be there if Dave Rayne, the mainstay of the promotion, is actually generic wrestler number 8 for the night, just so Goldust can hit his moves. So he did, and we had this amazing match that will not go down in the history of the world as the most technically amazing, like WrestleMania main event or anything like that, but it was a Dave Rayne versus Goldust match. And it meant that, like, I felt good about it, he felt good about it, I really enjoyed it. And we built some great moments right up until he did Shattered Dreams, which is when he sits me in the corner, he runs up, and he kicks me right between the legs, as hard as he can, and he don't pull it.
Oh, right, okay.
It was horrible. It was horrible, but also amazing. I was like crying and laughing all at the same time. It was just this weird pain. But yeah, no, and it was wonderful, and so he was fantastic. I had a match with a guy called Jeff Jarrett once.
Oh yeah, Jeff Jarrett. Wow, again.
And that ended up being the main event. So I was not particularly a main event wrestler. But your typical main event wrestlers are your 6'5", really broad heavyweights. That's kind of the main event. And I'm not those things. I was more kind of a mid-card entertainment kind of guy. I was there to be fun, not necessarily serious, not necessarily like hard-hitting. But I'd been, because of that persona and that character, I'd been tacked onto like a group feud between these really big bad guys who were a lot of the American names and then like the local kind of guys. And because obviously I had this history of moaning about the Americans and stuff. Like, you need a body, let's pull David. So I was just a random like 8th man in a Survivor Series match once against Jeff Jarrett and Chris Masters and a couple of people. And my team was a guy called Dave Mastiff, who now wrestles for NXT UK, and myself, a couple of other lads. And anyway, the end of that big team match was Dave Mastiff challenged Jeff Jarrett to a singles match on the next show. Only then, for personal reasons, Dave couldn't be at the next show. It was a very last-minute realization he wasn't going to make it. And they were like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Now, bearing in mind that I'd already wrestled this night against Scotty Too Hotty, of all people, in the tag match.
Bloody hell. Yeah.
This was a Halloween. So that Halloween, in the first match of the night, was me against, I was in a tag match against Scotty Too Hotty. So he hit the worm on me, which is it was really cool. Done that, thought I was going home. We need someone to do it. We reckon you can do it. Do you want to do the main event? And I was like, okay. And Jeff's like, brilliant. Yeah, we can work something out. Oh, by the way, Ricky's your manager. And I was like, what?
Oh,
and I went,
angle. Now you've just preempted my next question. So this is the bit I want to hear about, because Ricky Steamboat, Macho Man Randy Savage, WrestleMania 3, just one of the greatest moments of all time. And both those guys were like massive, massive childhood heroes of mine. So please, this is what I was after. Go.
Right. So yeah, so the match was like out of the blue. The idea was supposed to be that they were going to go out and start kind of trashing the fact that Dave wasn't going to be at the show, start trashing the promotion. And they cut this promo where they kept saying, like, Dave was a loser and Dave is this and Dave is that and Dave's no good. So eventually my music hit and I'm like, which Dave are you talking about right now? And that was kind of the whole thing, was that the whole angle was that I ambled out thinking they were talking about me, and actually they were talking about Dave Mastiff, and we ended up having a match. And we actually, Jeff and I planned this epic, big move, near falls, all kinds of crazy stuff match backstage. We did like lots of deep discussion, blah, blah, blah. And then it was Halloween, it was a nightclub, most of the wrestlers were in fancy dress, everyone was a bit drunk. About halfway through the night, he's looking at them. He's like, they're not going to care. I was like, no, they're not here for deep and serious storytelling. They're here to have moments and have a laugh. So let's have a laugh. So we ended up doing this match where, like, you know, I went out and I cut the promo that I cut back to them was that it was Halloween. It was a night where you could be anyone you want. So, like, I want you to forget that you're in the ring with Dave Rayne, because it ain't Dave Rayne. Tonight I'm coming out and I'm putting on a persona and I'm going to be like, the great sorts. Tonight you're going to be wrestling The Rock. And I got in the ring and I pretended to be The Rock. And I wrestled a main event match against Jeff Jarrett where I was pretending to be like Dwayne Johnson for the whole night. When I did like the spine buster and I did like the eyebrow and the people's elbow and the rock bottom and stuff. But randomly I had Ricky Steamboat because he had Karen Jarrett was his manager at ringside.
Right.
And her and I, like, again, had nice rapport and a few jokes and stuff. Culminating in this fantastic moment where she got in the ring to hit me and I caught her arm, spun around, put her over my knee and like gave her like a big spank. And someone had a photograph of me having this woman over my knee in the ring with my hand like this. My girlfriend at the time saw it a few days later. I was like, you didn't tell me that happened. You know, this woman that you.
Yeah, that's not a conversation you want to have, really, Dave. Oh,
yeah. But yeah, so I randomly had Ricky in, and it was so surreal. Right up to this one point where Jeff had he'd been choking me in the ropes, and the ref had come over and pulled him away and telling him off. And I was in the corner like, oh my god, I'm selling. And I feel someone kind of just tap, like, shake my hand, like take my arm and kind of give it a squeeze and stuff. And I look up and there's Ricky, my manager, at the side, and he goes, "You got this, son." And I remember thinking, like, Ricky just called me son. I could die happy. And I was so excited. And then then the finish was the ref goes down, Karen gets in to do something. She goes to slap Jeff and I duck and she hits Jeff. Bam. And then she's like, "Oh my god," and he kind of shoves her for slapping him. She goes out the ring. And I'm down, he's in the ring, and Ricky gets in the ring behind him. And he doesn't realise it. So, oh, and everyone's like, what? And he turns around and Ricky's behind him. He's like, oh. Ricky gives him this massive chop to his chest. Bam, and I'm down solid, and the chop hits him and he turns. He takes a shot, the shot makes him turn. As he turns, I used to cut out as a finish, like the arcade kind of move. So he takes his chop and turns, and as he turns, I just jump up out of nowhere, hit the cutter, bam, cover him. Ricky Steamboat counts to 3 for me, and I win. And he raises him, and it's a picture of me like this, like raising my arm, like my arm up in the air, and it was one of the most amazing moments in my wrestling career.
Oh mate, I've had some landmark moments as well. Hoist Gracie, who's the original UFC champion and Hall of Famer, he graded me for my blue belt. Now I didn't go down. I went to a training seminar with him that some friends of mine had put on down in Chesterfield. Had an amazing time, and at the end of the session, I wasn't expecting to be graded. I didn't go there for a grading. I wasn't even part of his particular association at the time. So that blew me away. That was one of those moments. And the other time, there's been so many. I've met, I boxed in front of Sugar Ray Leonard one time. That was an honor. And
wow.
Oh mate, he was one of my major influences, just class act. And I got to meet him briefly, chat with him briefly, but just when he was drawing the names for this cash fighter tournament out of the hat, and I'm like, Sugar Ray Leonard knows my name, even if only just for this second. But and I boxed well. It was cool. I trained with Chuck Liddell, trained with Ken Shamrock. So again, Shamrock and Gracie, arguably the two most influential sort of martial artists in the last 100 years, bar Bruce Lee. and their rivalry was legendary. Both absolute pioneers of MMA. And then Ken obviously had his run in the WWE as well, in the Attitude Era. He was in there with The Rock and everybody else under the sun. And
The dog pound match, the Big Boss Man, that's the one.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah.
The one he did at the Lions Den match with Owen Hart at one SummerSlam as well. That was pretty cool. He's had some moments in there, and yeah, and I think he, if I remember rightly from reading Bret Hart's autobiography, I think the Hart sort of helped train him for the pro side of things, if I'm right in thinking that. So I've had those moments and those crossover moments with the pro wrestling life. And a lot of my mates that work in the stunts and things like that. Lee Charles, who I've interviewed, who's one of the stars of Gangs of London, that's coming out in a few days, which I can't wait to see. That's Gareth Evans, who directed The Raid. Oh, Dave, check that out. That's coming to business.
I saw a preview of that. I currently work for Sky TV at the moment, and staff got to have like a bit of a preview of it like about a month ago or so, and that was pretty cool. I was like, this is something I'm definitely going to watch.
Ray's in that as well. Ray pops up in that as well, doing his thing.
I'll keep an eye for him.
Oh yeah, do so. You'll see. You can't mistake that face. I mean,
God no.
What was I going to say? So, Lee worked with Batista, and he had a great fight with him in Final Score. Lee's one of it's the first fight of the film, and that's kind of like the first match on a pay-per-view card. It's really important because it sets the tone for the whole night, right? So Lee's playing a Russian, bad guy in that, and he ends up having a fight scene in a lift. Really cool close quarters fight scene with Dave Batista. And Lee's a big wrestling fan, he mentioned as well. And he said he was kind of a bit starstruck, but plus just struck by the sheer size of the guy. There's one bit where he tries to get him kind of like an arm triangle hold, and he couldn't lock his hands.
Yeah, his own neck and shoulders.
So there was that. And also, Lee was in the Marine 6 as well, I think. But my mate, John Mulvey from Ireland, he had quite a hand in that. And he was working with Shawn Michaels and Becky Lynch and The Miz and what have you. So it's amazing how the two worlds cross over a lot. And we've talked a lot about the storytelling in the matches. We've talked a lot about the fact that, just because it's for entertainment's sake doesn't mean that you don't have to be extremely physically conditioned and, do you...
Well, I mean, something we didn't mention that I wanted to kind of say is like one of the most important parts of wrestling is that in terms of the conditioning and the physicality of it is that for a professional wrestler, if you're not in peak physical shape, if you're not, kind of have enough gas left in your tank to pick yourself up after 25 minutes of non-stop go, it's not you that gets hurt, it's the person you're working with. And that's kind of why, like, there's so much kind of the risk of wrestling, because when you're in a legitimate fight, someone throws a punch, you're allowed to duck, you're allowed to protect yourself. But in wrestling, you have to stand there and hope that the other person has got enough about them that they can do it without breaking your cheekbone or your nose or knocking it. Like this isn't a real tooth. I had one of my teeth knocked out in a wrestling match before now. I've got a couple of chip ones as well. I've ruptured my biceps, so my bicep just was not attached to my shoulder anymore. And
yeah, I don't know.
You know what I mean? And these things, they happen. And the weird thing with wrestling is that they happen in ways, because in any kind of combat sport, injuries happen, but they happen in ways and for reasons that are completely different. And when they happen, what you do as well is completely different.
This is something that's like an interesting sort of side note for me, because I'm not going to go on to a dark one, but wrestling, everything has a dark side to it. But the sort of techniques that you've talked about and the way that you are assuming, like a character actor, assuming a persona sort of full time, and there are plenty of stories about famous stories about famous actors who are character actors staying in character all day when they're on the set, like famously Anthony Hopkins on Silence of the Lambs used to scare the crap out of the crew in between takes and things because he was there all day. I get that, right? But it's like with wrestling, it's like where does the off switch come? You know what I mean? It's like, because you're saying you're out there, you're doing your social media, this, that, and no, I'm not being funny. If you're a reasonably sane and stable type of a chap and you've got a fairly sort of decent sense of yourself, I guess you can do that quite safely, right? For instance, just to pull this out there, possibly not the most stable person with the most solid sense of myself.
I know what
I
you're talking
think
about.
it would be massively dodgy of me to sort of assume a character on a full-time basis, because that's where the boundaries start to blur. And then, like you say, you're in a situation that's been much like the screen fight choreography that I do. It's been presented as a legitimate, fight or competition or whatever, but it is entertainment. And, you've got all those different concepts going along. Plus the fact that you guys work like ridiculous schedules. I mean, like a lot of the WWE guys I've read, they're competing 300 out of 365 days in a year, or they're at least, they're doing something. That is grueling. So it's like, I mean, you then add things like travel into that, jet lag, and then believe me, I can see where the issues with things like substance abuse come. I mean, I'm falling apart at 41. I'm not in an abusive way, but I mean, I have to take fairly strong painkillers reasonably regularly, and at times sleeping tablets, because I need shoulder surgery, I need a hip replacement in the next 3 or 4 years. And at the minute, I'm in the process of grinding out the last few years. Why? Because I utterly love what I do. While I can still physically do it, I will be doing. Yeah, simple as that. We all go out feet first in a box. If the experiential gain outweighs the physical damage, do it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not self-destructive. I'm, like I said, one of the first things before we turn the camera on, I'm telling you about my diet, and I'm on my training, my diet. I'm looking after myself. I'm going for longevity. I've got 2 kids. I'm trying to find that balance. My point being, in such an environment as professional wrestling, I don't find it hard at all to see where that balance goes way, way out the window. And it's like even character actors, they get home and, they've got a clearly defined a clearly defined line. I think the pace of pro wrestling, the amount you guys are working, the blending of fiction and reality, I think that's a bit of a head fuck for anyone, quite frankly. And then, like, let's say, you're like me, you're getting a little bit worse for wear. Maybe you start leaning a little heavy on the painkillers, or you start to have a couple of pints with that to make them a little bit more so, because, to quote Guns N' Roses, used to do a little, but the little one do it, it's a little bit more and more. Slippery slopes all around. And also, like, the general mentality, it's like, I will admit openly, right? If I go back, you see me now at 41, and I'm going to go back hopefully for 4 or 5 more professional fights, whether that's bare knuckle, MMA, kickboxing, or a bit of whatever, right? Purely for the love, purely for the right reasons, for the experience, for me, end of, right? End of. Just because I've done this for 34 years and counting, and I'd like to put a bit of an exclamation mark on my, career, and that's for me. But in my younger days, when I was fighting every 10 minutes, and you can when you're 20, you get your arm ripped off, you just like grow a new one. It just doesn't work like that as you get older, does it? But I will admit that at times, because I've struggled with my mental health, at times there was an element of probably self-harm in there. I used to, in my late teens, early 20s, with my depression, one of the ways I sort of used to relieve that tension, that adrenaline, etc., was to burn myself with cigarettes and what have you. I had that element to me. And yes, that element came out to an extent in my competitive fighting. In that, if I got in there and I was taking a beating, I quite liked it sometimes. I got into it. But at no point in time was I not trying to win. And this is the thing with me that's interested stroke scared me about pro wrestling, is the lengths that people will go to for entertainment. Now, I get, what did I just say 2 minutes ago? If the physical damage outweighs the experiential gain, do it. So I get people doing crazy stunts, doing enormous bumps and this, that, and the other, because, wow, Mick Foley letting himself get thrown off the top of the Hell in a Cell by The Undertaker. Jesus wept. We're still talking about that, like, 10, 15 years on, and we probably will be 10, 15 years from now. It was a landmark moment. Yeah, do it. I get that. But it's all a question of that balance, isn't it? It's keeping that correct balance. And there's something to me about like you say, going into a ring, and it's, especially when people are, the old school practice like blading, when they're physically cutting themselves with razor blades so that they can open each other up. Because it's, blood is obviously, speaking of storytelling and emotional involvement, blood gets an emotional involvement from anyone pretty much straight away. Because again, it means something to anyone all around the world. But I mean, there are guys that start to overcook that side of things. Someone like myself, who in the past has struggled heavily with his mental health and everything, I can completely relate to that. I struggle with pain, and I manage my diet, my nutrition, and my pain medication very sparingly, and I look after myself. But I can imagine if I'm working, like it's happened to me occasionally when I've been on film sets, a 12-hour day standard, and you could be like doing fight scenes for 8 of those 12 hours. Now you try doing even moderate exercise for 8 hours and see how you feel. You've wrestled, you know how it feels, and you're reacting, you're whipping your head around. It's like, oh man. And then you're getting up the next day and you're doing it again for 8 hours, right? And it's like occasionally I've sort of looked at how many, cocodamol I'm going through and thinking, oh, okay, we need to, do something here, I've gone about it in a very long-winded way, but I'm just sort of highlighting a few of the perils as I see them. And there is that sort of aspect of wrestling that can get out of control really, really quickly. So, I mean, I guess the promotions have to sort of keep an eye on that, really. And that it's a big responsibility, really. I mean, I just wonder if you had any thoughts about that side of things, how to manage it as an individual or as a promoter, I mean, any thoughts on it?
So it's slippery slope, and it's easy to get caught up into. And it's not like you said. So there's a lot of physical kind of stress and strain put on you. You are at an event, getting chucked around, taking all this damage, all this impact and stuff until like 11 midnight, and then you're going to a hotel. If you're lucky, there's a hotel, and you're getting your head down for a few hours. And then if you're, for example, if you're WWE, maybe you got to get up early to get to the next place you're going to perform in the next day. You got to get there in time to be able to go and do some press, or some like appearances or anything like that. So it's this constant go. So it can be very easy to kind of start looking for ways of scaffolding that. Like I need something to help me get to sleep when I need to get to sleep, because it's the only time I'm going to sleep. I need something to wake me up the moment I wake up, because I need to be awake the moment I wake up. And I'm going to spend 12 hours on the go, and I can't be, and it's this weird thing with wrestling where, like we talked about being a show. So someone does the fake punch, you have to act like you've just been shot. You know what I mean? Like that one individual hit has barely hurt you. You barely felt it. But you got to let an arena of like 30,000 people think that that's absolutely devastated you. But then your shoulder pops out. You have to pretend like nothing's happened, because it's not part of the show. It's not part. You know what I mean? And we can't. And it's that weird kind of grey area where wrestling exists, in, where it needs to be presented as real as possible, but also we don't want anyone to know that it is real, because it becomes uncomfortable, because we want people to watch these people perform and fight, but we don't want them to actually realize that what they're watching is two people tear each other apart, because then it's that kind of weird, kind of like grey area with it. So it's very easy to get on that slope. Like I personally, at one point, was very much dependent on just painkillers to get through the day, and I never. In terms of being an in-ring performer, I was never particularly prolific. It was never I talked about reaching all my goals, like in wrestling. I never really wanted to go and work for WWE. I didn't want to leave the country. I'm a bit of a homebody. My family's all here. It was never my dream to go and travel the world with WWE and that kind of stuff. I just wanted to perform for the crowd and be good at what I do. And then I started the promotion, and I wanted to get people into WWE to help them. So my goals were always kind of achievable without having to necessarily kind of burn my world to make them happen. But even then, on that level of things, like I said, I'd be doing like the camps and stuff just to earn some money, and I'd be doing, so there's these camps, for example. I say about how many matches we had, but maybe there'd be 2 different shows in the day because 2 camps are close together, and there's 4 guys in a ring, and that's your team. You got to do like an hour and a half entertainment. So what normally would happen is you'd get there, you'd set up the ring, so you'd be carrying all this metal up God knows how many flights of stairs and setting up the ring, because there's only 4 of you. You set it up, and then there's 4 of you. So I'll wrestle the guy in the opener, And then the other two guys will wrestle each other. But then at the end of that match, the bad guy from my match will get involved. And the good guy from my match will get involved. We'll have a big standoff, and we'll tell you what, we'll sort this out in a tag match after the break. So then we have a 10-minute interval, and then we have a tag match. So at that point, I've done a 30-minute match, I've done a run-in, and I've done another 30-minute tag match. And I've got to set a ring down, put it in the van, go and pose with some photos with a bunch of kids, get in, go to the next camp, do the same thing again. At that point, I've wrestled for 2 hours. I've gone up 2 flights of stairs, I've gone down 2 flights of stairs, and I carried a ton of metal doing it. And, you know, like, it's grafting. Like any job, it's grafting. It's constant. So it's so easy just to be like, I've got this, I've got to do that. It's so easy to be, you know, and when you're doing the camps, you're probably away from your family. If you're lucky, and you're doing it right, your camps would be kind of Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Your camps are 6 days, and you go home. Maybe Friday you got home Friday night. You spend all Saturday night at home, then Sunday morning you're in the car and off you go again. If you were sensible, some people would then do the Friday show, then they would go to do what's called a town show, which is your more kind of indie wrestling, kind of style show, rather than the family one. They go do that Friday night, and go do one Saturday night. And then Sunday they're back on the road. So they spend 6, 7, 8 weeks at a time not going home, wrestling constantly. So it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm with the lads, I'll have a few beers, I'll have this, I'll have that. And suddenly it becomes, that's your life. Your life is a few beers, some painkillers, something to help you sleep, something to help you wake up, and off you go. And it's so hard, and because then you're not turning that persona off, like ever. You're just not. And then there's a point when you are, like, it's not a persona anymore. It is who you are, because it is how you treat people, you know, and perception is reality.